Welcome, everybody, and welcome, Natasha. Thank you for joining me today on the Wild Wisdom for Women's Facebook group live for my morning Wednesday event. I'm so excited. Thank you for joining.
Yeah, thanks so much for the invite. I'm so happy to be here again today.
Awesome. And for those of you who have never met Natasha before, she is an Ayurveda and Yoga teacher, and she's amazing at what she does. I love her ability to take very complicated Ayurveda wisdom and make it like applicable and understandable to the everyday woman like myself. And so we've done a few lives together, and we've always had a really good time. So I invited her back on today because today's topic is very timely. I think it's always been timely, but it's very timely for today's modern woman. And that's the topic of emerging from the dark cave of negative emotions. And if you happen to be joining us live, please put in your name and where you're joining us from into the comments. There's a tiny little lag between our stream and your viewing, but it's not actually that big. So if it takes a few seconds for me to delay to respond, don't worry, I'll eventually see it, and that would be wonderful to see you and connect with you today. And if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in as well. Questions help us direct our information, and other people who watch this, even on the replay later, will benefit from your questions. So don't be afraid to ask questions. So Natasha and I actually met over the weekend to discuss this live and to have a nice meal together at a lovely coffee shop. And we were just reflecting on how we both have had the experience of being in dark caves of negative emotions. And we were reflecting on how was it that we managed to get ourselves out of them, and what were the tools that we used, all the different tools in our toolbox, and how can we convey this information to you in a way that it'll like light, you'll have like aha moments and say, I can start putting this into practice right away, right, Natasha?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I just want to say hi to June from Calgary. Hi, in your PJs. Well, we can't see you, so you're cozy and you're watching. That's wonderful. Wonderful. So first of all, I want to just set the stage to explain, like, what is the dark cave of negative emotions? And for many of us, it's like sometimes it's not even an awareness that it, like, I like to use a lot of metaphors and things like that to try to explain like what I'm going through and what I'm feeling. For a lot of us, it's simply the feeling that, you're going along in your life and you're like sucked into, or you're in this like sensation of like darkness, where you just feel down, it feels heavy, it feels like, you're not happy, and you almost can like, and sometimes you're in it, you don't even see anything outside of it, and sometimes you can actually see yourself behaving in ways that you're just like, oh my God, why am I doing this? Like, why am I so angry? Why am I so irritable? Why am I short-tempered? Why am I withdrawing from life? And that's like, we're going to speak about levels of awareness. So the first level of awareness is that you're actually not even aware. You're just in it. You're just living a very difficult life. Very negative emotions are coming up all the time. You're not even aware. You think that's normal. It's common, but it's not normal. But you think that's normal, right? And then the next level of awareness is like you can kind of, you have glimpses of seeing yourself doing these things and going, like, I don't want to be doing these things. Why do I get sucked into these behavior patterns? And then there's a higher level of awareness where you can see yourself, like you're like, yep, there it is, like, there's my trigger. We're going to talk about triggers. It's like watching something on the news, or your kids say something or do something in a way, or your partner communicates with you in a certain tone or doesn't say anything in a certain energetic tone, or your work, whatever it is, right? It's like that trigger. You feel a loss of control. You feel like you're not being heard, you're not being respected, like you're not valued. All of those triggers, you're not loved, right? And then the next level of awareness is that you can see it all, like you can see that you're in a dark cave, right? And you know that beyond the cave is the light. And you can even remember the feeling of the light sometimes, like most of the time, or sometimes you might forget, but you're like, okay, yeah, there is a life outside of this way of being right now, which is bright and happy. And even when things happen to trigger me, Like my kid's upset that his socks don't match and wears the sock that he wants and it's dirty and it's in the laundry and I can't get it, you know? And even in those moments, you know, in the light, you just laugh and you say, sorry, honey, like those socks are not available. Like I wish I had a magic wand to reach in and pull it out, and I don't. Let's see what else we've got. And you just stay so positive that eventually they have no choice but to be okay and get out of their dark cave of negative emotion, right? So you know that it's there, and then the work is in like, how do you pull yourself out of that cave into the light? And you would think it's so easy when I explain it this way. It's like, I just like step out of the cave into the light. But Natasha and I were talking, that dark cave is kind of addictive, right? There's an addictive quality to it. And addiction by definition is when we keep doing the same thing over and over again, even though we know it's hurting us and hurting the people that we love. So it's not a pleasure addiction. And the way I like to think of it for myself is like, it's an addiction of safety. Like, you know what it's like in that cave. It's the known. And there's a weird comfort to it, where you just sit in those negative emotions and you're just like, yeah, I'm just so angry, I'm just so irritated, I'm just so sad, you know? And any sort of thing where it's like, you have the opportunity to pull yourself out of it, like using tools like forgiveness, exercising, going out for a walk, like forcing yourself to connect with friends, you know, that just seems like so much of an effort. You're like, it's just so effortful. I just don't feel like putting in the effort. It's so much safer and easier and comforting to be in this dark cave. And what I want you to know is that it is worth the effort. It is worth the effort to learn and utilize every single tool that Natasha is going to teach you today to pull yourself out of that cave, because even though the sun, when you first step out of the cave, it can be blinding and uncomfortable, and there's the unknown, you don't even know where you are, like what's going on outside of this cave, like there could be anything out there. Stepping into the light and back into the unknown is like, I'm in there right now, I'm in the light right now. A couple of weeks ago, I had to dip into my negative cave of emotions, and I managed to pull myself up using every tool that I knew. It was so effortful, and I just got myself out of there and I stepped out into light, and it feels so damn good, you know? And it's like, I just want you to trust me when I say this, that it is worth every single ounce of effort. And while you're in your negative cave of emotions, your priority is you. You have to get yourself out of your negative cave of emotions before you even start looking at other people. You can't be looking at other people being like, they're in their negative cave of emotions, they're in their cave of emotions. You know what I mean? Like, my son is dipping into his negative cave of emotions. Like, you have to get yourself out first in order to be able to pull other people out. So pay attention, listen up. You are worth it. You deserve it. And we're going to teach you some really amazing tools. All right. So I don't see any questions yet, which is okay. Reasonable. I haven't had anything I think is questionable, I hope. So Natasha, yeah, what do you think about that? Does that resonate with you?
Well, I love all of the introduction and what you said, and like, this is really what's happening. You know, we've both been through it, which means we know that you have been through it or are going through it right now, and it's hard. And you also need to meet yourself where you are. And we can be as positive as we want, but you also have to have that compassion to recognize and acknowledge, you know, I am here. And what I wanted to add is that in yoga philosophy, we talk about exactly what you're mentioning is this kind of sort of vicious circle. It's like an action happens, that action creates an impression on the mind, and that impression on the mind then creates a desire or an avoidance, which then creates an action. And so we go into this circular motion, and we also do this in the brain, like this sort of like repetition of patterns and creating these sort of highways of thought because of this circular motion. And then how do you pull yourself out? You're talking about the different levels of awareness. And in our yoga philosophy, we talk about how using yoga and the different tools in yoga, we can pull ourselves out of this cycle to create new impressions, which then create new desires, which then create new actions. And it takes time, and as you continue to go through the circle and make those slight changes, you elevate out of the circle in a circular motion rather than staying in it and then feeling like, oh my God, I can't jump out. You know, and sometimes it takes this sort of like iterative process to get out. And for me, I know that when I get into the dark cave, that I'm not getting out the next day. Like I need to have compassion, and I know that I need to actually reach and dig deep for the tools. And I also have to really, you can't bypass. You can't just be like, I'm going to shelve this emotion and I'm going to get to work and not think about it and distract myself with kids, work, TV, whatever you want to distract yourself with, because that doesn't pull you out. It actually keeps you stuck. And so you can't get out until you actually acknowledge and you understand and start thinking about and recognizing that you're there. So how do we do that, right? So there's a couple of things that bring us kind of through this sort of elevation of awareness. And so the first thing we need to realize is that, well, not the first thing. A couple of things that we need to realize are that when we're in this state, we feel separate. We feel like this is happening to us and we're alone. This is our ego working on us. We're developing these thoughts that, I have this trauma, this is happening to me, and I feel very separate and not in community with what is happening. And acknowledging that and just having compassion for yourself is a really big thing to cultivate. So I'm feeling this way, and my ego is helping me feel this way for a reason. It's trying to protect me from something. It's not the evil thing that some people make it out to be. It's there for a reason, and it's trying to protect you from some sort of core wound that you have, which is probably playing itself, which is what we're going to get to in a little bit about how to discover what that might be. So just not understanding, why at this point, but just understanding that you are in this place, and that's okay. First, acceptance. I'm here, and this is what's happening, and I don't need to be someone else yet. And then after that, maybe try to open the mind up a little bit more. Think about the interconnectedness of your whole life. No matter what you're doing, look around, right? The food you're cooking is part of community. It was purchased in a grocery store. It was brought by truckers. It was, farmed by the farmers, right? We're all connected. The plants outside, the trees, nature, we need each other to survive. There is a lot of deep connection and love. So you're not alone, even if you feel this separateness from community. And then you want to connect within yourself. And that's where some of the tools come in. So, understanding where you are, maybe doing some sort of gratitude, affirmation, journaling, those kinds of things you can take some alone time to do, and will help start to rewrite that narrative. So I want to talk a little bit about what yoga will have to say about helping us get out of the emerging cave of negative emotions, and a little bit about what Ayurveda would say. So we're going to start with something that's a little bit more accessible, which is Ayurveda, because Ayurveda works on the body to free the mind from the body. So let's try and use our bodies and to get out of this sort of stuck place, or this cave-like place. And so what we try to do in Ayurveda is look at the qualities of what's happening. So if we take our emotions that we're feeling, and whether they're frustration or if they're loneliness, these negative emotions of sadness or fear or anger or frustration, what are the qualities of these emotions? So taking, sadness as a example, when you feel sad, where do you feel it? Is it heavy? Is it dense? Does it make you feel weighed down? Does it make you feel tired or lethargic? What are those qualities of how you're feeling? If you're feeling fearful, what are the qualities of fear? It's agitation, it's anxiety, it's those types of things, right? And those qualities are light and mobile and vibrational, and they're just like agitated, you know? And so how we can balance these deep emotions are with the opposites. So Ayurveda says like increases like and opposites pacify. So when you're feeling that like heavy, dense, lethargic, like sort of like really weighed down, you want to add some lightness to your food, to your routines, to your day. So this is where those qualities can really like lift you up. And some examples of that would be, you know, having those vegetables, like what's the word, Patty?
Crunchy
Or
yeah,
those veggies that have that astringent or bitter taste to it. We can juice our veggies. That's also a way to get something lighter rather than having them cooked in a stew. You know, like let's lighten it up. We can get outside when it's windy. We can get outside when there's sun. We can just like find those ways to uplift us, right? And maybe we can do something a little bit out of the ordinary and change up our schedule. You know, it's just different ways to add the qualities of light and mobile when you're feeling heavy and dense and stuck. When you're on the fear side of things and you are feeling agitated and fearful and mobile, that's when you want to ground down. How can you make yourself feel loved and cozy and warm and slippers and blankets and warm cocoa and, you know, hot drinks and stews and, you know, all of the things that you can do. And those times when you're feeling like agitated and hot and spicy and like passionate and like, you know, you're losing control and you just are way out of whack when this is happening and you just can't find that control. We need that love, compassion, play. Play is important. How can you offer up that control? How can you surrender in something in your day? Maybe the kids decide what's for dinner, you know, like let's brainstorm what we're going to make tonight. Or maybe you let something go because you know that you have this support. When it comes to your food, how can you cool yourself down? Some cucumber water, some sweet and again bitter and astringent type foods can help cool the body down. So these are some ways to look at the opposite of the emotion you're feeling, add that into your diet, your routine, your exercise even, and that can help pull you out. So these are some tools that can help with the symptoms.
I wanted to mention that one thing that I used to really be disconnected from my body. So when someone would say like, feel your emotions, I'd be like, what do you mean by that? So I just wanted to help people out with this one because now I do understand and I can connect with my emotions. So when I was in my dark cave of emotions 2 weeks ago, it was the full moon. I just remember it so well. Like everything was just on the surface. You know, I was ready to explode, kind of thing. Anything just triggered me. And I have that level of awareness where I was watching myself, and I was like, and I got to a level where I was curious and kind of like almost like a scientist, like observing myself. Like that's a cool level to get at, by the way, when you're in the cave and then you spiral out and you're not quite out, but you're watching from above and you can see yourself, you know, where you're just like, isn't that interesting? Like I'm irritated, like I'm speaking about myself, like you're irritated by this. And if you were in a good place right now, that would not even bother you. So it's not what that person is saying to you that's the problem. It's something inside of you that's reacting to what that person is saying, right? So, and that's a really important level of awareness. And what the feeling, the emotions, like I remember sitting there and just like, sometimes you have to have a timeout, you know, as you said, Natasha, it's like you have to acknowledge that you have an issue. So just like close the door. I told my husband, I was like, I just need to go into the bedroom, just have a few minutes to myself because I'm in a dark place right now, and I need to, I know I need to get out of this, and so I just need a few minutes. And he's like, sure, you know, okay. And so he took the kids, I went into the bedroom, and I felt, and this emotion was an interesting one, because I usually, when I'm angry, I feel like a hot, red, it's like a red, and I always try to think, what does it feel like? What's the temperature? What's the texture? What's the temperature? What's the color? Where's the location? How does it move, or does it stay stuck? And if there was an animal, what kind of animal would it be? Like these are just ways to like start taking the rational mind into the body. So I noticed that my emotion at that time was like, it was like this yellow, this like mustardy yellow color in the front of my chest. And it was like this tight, kind of like not hot but not cold, but like it was almost like a texture that was almost like grating texture. It was like a painful texture. It hurt actually. Once I paid attention to it, it was painful. And it stayed pretty stuck there. Like sometimes it'd go up into my throat and sometimes to my back. Like I get like tension and pain in my back and sometimes in my throat and sometimes in my jaw. But it was there, and it was so fascinating to me because once I honed in on the emotion, on the feeling of the emotion, I was able to kind of let go of what triggered it. Because sometimes we get so caught on like blaming other people for the way that we're feeling. It's like, this person did this thing, they said this thing about politics or about the world events, or they said it about this or whatever. And so they made me feel this way. And that's maybe true, but that's not where the healing is, because you can't change that person. You can only change yourself, right? So when I was able to focus and feeling the emotion, that's when I realized that like it took my mind off of the trigger and focused it inward, and I was able to start like, I started like picturing myself dissolving the emotion, and because it felt tight and hard and painful, what I did is I told my husband, I was like, I need to go for a walk. So I went for a walk around the block a few times. And as I was walking, and it's interesting you should say, so that's the mobility. I wanted to disperse this pain. It was too stuck and heavy in me. So I went for a walk, and it was mobile, and I was in touch with the pain, and I pictured it like leaving my arms as I swung my arms, like draining out of my head as I was walking, draining out of my feet as I was walking. So the mobility allowed me, plus being in touch with myself, allowed me to drain that out. And it actually, I'm getting goosebumps because it actually helped me get over this so much faster than if I had just been like, everything's fine, yeah, let's go make dinner together, let's go do this project that we had planned. Like if I had just stayed with the plan, I was like, I can't, like, do you mind taking the kids? I need to go to the bedroom, I need to go for a walk. And when I came back, I was a different person. I still wasn't like totally out of the cave, but I love that spiral idea. It was like if the cave was a tunnel going up, I had gone up much closer to the light. I could see the light, And sometimes I could even allow myself to go into light. Because when you let go, you go into light. It's when you hold on to the emotion for too long that you're almost like keeping yourself in there. So at one point, I got so close to the surface and the light that I was able to just let go of that emotion and allow myself to get out of that dark cave. But I couldn't have done it, I don't think, if I hadn't stopped for a moment, felt it inside of myself, and then gone for that walk.
Yeah, and I want to recognize and let everyone else recognize, like, it's really inspiring to hear your story, and it's not easy to do.
No.
It's not. We often struggle with our boundaries, right? You communicated a boundary, and you're like, I need to take a moment to like register, and then I need to like go for a walk. I remember as my grandfather and my father, I can just remember like how they would like, my grandfather would like go for a walk, and he would like get out his boat and like row his boat and like come back hours later, and my dad would like go for a drive, and like I can remember that these are ways that we've been dealing with this stuff for, centuries. Like, we need to take the time, we need to like carve out this boundary. You don't have to be like superwoman. You can take a moment and be like, okay, I need to fill my cup so that I can fill your cup, because I can't fill your cup from an empty cup. And so take that time, carve out that boundary, ask for what you need, because like, you'll be surprised, maybe you'll get it, when you communicate that.
And especially when you ask with the loving energy, like if you ask from like the negative energy, it's going to create a negative emotion. So I literally was like, I'm in a really dark place right now. I need to snap out of this. Do you mind if I go just take a few minutes for myself to do this? For the family, and so because I approached it in that way. And the other thing that June mentioned here, she says, can being alone help for peace and reevaluate, but sometimes I go to guilt, take the blame and give up. So thank you, June, for being so honest and sharing, because that is sometimes what can happen is that you start taking the time, and then there's a difference between feeling the emotions and processing through them versus like feeling the emotions and then wallowing in them. Like giving up, and then creating new negative emotions like guilt. I feel so guilty. I feel ashamed. I'm embarrassed. What's wrong with me? Why am I feeling this way? By the way, there does not have to be any rational reason for you to get into a dark cave of negative emotion, because as Natasha mentioned, there are core wounds that we have from the time that we are children. Some random thing that happens to you, your parents, unbeknownst to them, do something that makes you feel unsafe, and then you retreat to safety by building up a block, like a barrier, like anger, and so then your safety, anytime you feel triggered and you feel unsafe, you go to anger, or you go to fear, or you go to withdrawal, you go to shame, guilt. And so remember, it doesn't need to be rational, however, and there is a need to process that emotion and not stay stuck in it, or like start going into other negative emotions, but actually move through it to the other side. And I just shared with you what Natasha spoke about the movement, giving a very concrete example of how that really allowed me to move. You basically, the emotion dissolves. Really, like the emotion doesn't just like how do I say it? It doesn't just like disappear. It dissolves. Like it's a process of making it go away. So you mentioned, Natasha, some Ayurveda strategies, and now you also mentioned that you had some yoga strategies, and I'm very curious because I have to say I'm not familiar with those. I don't think so. I'd love to hear those.
Well, actually, you are very, very familiar with the yoga strategies, but we'll just kind of lay them out. And so, one of the things that we've been talking about is that meditation, shifting the attention of the thoughts. Right? Where we do spend time alone, and we can start focusing on the negative, and the tools we just mentioned of the opposites will help pull us out. Those are tools like getting out in nature, getting for a walk, getting in the sun, eating the different foods that can help pull you out. Those are ways to help use the body to change the mind. Because it does work. There is a connection. We're not separate. Body, mind, and spirit together, right? So, but also meditation can be used as a tool. Folks are maybe new to meditation, but the intention here is to have a one-pointed, concentration. And it's okay if it's someone else's voice. It's okay if it's like, recently I had to do I was doing a Deepak Ram, 21 days meditation on divine feminine and finding abundance and getting unstuck with Oprah Winfrey. And I'm like, yes, keep telling me all of these positive thoughts. They're 14 minutes long and worth it, right? So, it's changing the thought pattern, right? And that's the point of meditation and concentration. The other one is we were talking about observances. Self-study is a big one in yoga. It's one of the very first limbs. Part of the very first limb is the self-study and reflection, right? What is happening? Why? Asking that deeper why.
Why did I get angry? Why does that make me angry? Why? Exactly.
Why do I feel guilty? Why does that make me feel guilty? Why? So if you do want to get stuck, because our very fiery, analytical folks, they want to figure out, right? They want to do the experiment. So you can sit in that meditation for a short period of time and dig into the why. And don't stay at the surface. The surface level whys are just the ego telling you that story that's trying to protect you. You need to get below. So it takes work, takes time, can take journaling. Breath, right? You have this breath work that you're doing on the full moon. This breath work, it's a huge connection between the physical body and the mind. So we can use our breath to help our mind. If we start to control the breath and we start to calm the breath, we start to calm the mind and control the mind. It is our one physical thing that we have physical control over that will actually change our mind, right? It's our connection that we have right in our body. So learn different breathing practices. And also I want to mention that I've got quite a few on my YouTube channel as well that can help with these. I just posted one actually about, sadness and depression, and one of those breath practices can help you pull you out, right? And so regulating the breath is a way to help control the mind. And these emotions are sometimes stuck in different parts of our body, like you were mentioning, and moving those parts of the body, like stretching them, putting pressure on them, bringing like pranic energy to them, using breath practices that involve those parts of the body, that helps bring energy to the body, that helps regulate it, and that helps sort of release those emotions as well. And so there's these like 8 limbs, but just talking about the first few of like observances and restraints, meditation, awareness, concentration, breath work, movement. This is what yoga is about, right? It's about like trying to really free the soul from the mind, right? Our monkey mind, and that's what we're using the tools to do.
So can I interject because it's almost like you didn't know my journey out of the cave a couple weeks ago, but I feel like you're like, this is exactly what happened to me. And sometimes, again, like some people hear meditation, breath work, and it stays very superficial. And that's what it used to be like for me. I mean, I was a very scientific, like thinking from the head all the time, right? And so, just to give you an example, I did start meditating since I was 40. Like, I just remember I'm 40 years old, I'm going to do something new for myself. So painful at first, and now it's like my life, savior. And so what happened was I went for that walk, right? And I would say like I got like 80% out of the cave, but I was still in that cave, like still, and I could tell that if anything happened to trigger me, I would still dive deep down into it, right? So what happened was the next morning, I did my usual meditation, and I changed my meditation practice. Like every morning I meditate differently depending on what I feel like. And what I meditated was, I am forgiveness. That was my focus. Like, I am forgiveness. Who did I have to forgive? I had to forgive myself for being in the dark cave. I had to forgive whoever I thought, or whatever circumstances I thought was generating the trigger for me, right? World events, the way that my husband said something to me, or the way my children were behaving, and then going deeper. So that was actually the superficial, and then the deeper part was forgiving myself. And then I naturally switched to I am love. I love myself. I am love. And I felt, because I was one pointed focus on this one concept that I am love, I started to feel love in my body. Like, it was so beautiful. It was just this feeling of like calm and peace. And that feeling of calm and peace came from deep inside. I didn't even know it was there until it started coming out. And it kind of pushed a lot of that darkness out. Those negative emotions started like pushing it, and when I started feeling it, I actually like, and then I called upon it, and I pulled it into my chest, I pulled it into my hands, I pulled it into my face, into my legs. Like, literally, you're right. You can feel the stuck energy moving out. It's kind of fascinating, actually. And if I hadn't gotten to a one-point focus concentration state, which you can only really get with meditation in this way, I don't think I ever would have been able to call upon those inner reserves. And then the other thing was that night, so the trigger for me happened on Saturday, and then Sunday the kids were skiing, so I didn't have anything to trigger me. It was just by myself, so I was just triggering myself if I wanted to. And then Monday was the full moon breathwork that I host with Shannon Frame. And we were doing the breathwork. I've done breathwork with her many times. And this time, I went into breathwork, and I could feel something was different. My energy was just like so vibrating, like in my body, like something was in there, and it just wanted to get out. I was still sensitive, I could tell. I was a sensitive soul. Like, if someone came in the room and did something wrong, I would just like, instead of saying, "Oh, honey, could you please close the door?" in the middle of my breathwork, I would be like, "Get out!" And then we did the breathwork, and in the breathwork, I started to sob. Uncontrollably cry. My body was shaking, like, and deep within me came this like sadness. And you know what it was? It was sadness for my dad, who had died from ALS a few years back. And I thought I had processed those emotions, but there was still some sadness left deep, deep, deep down inside that whenever I'm like in a sensitive phase of my life, like maybe I'm menstruating or maybe it's a full moon or whatever it is, that it was still there to be like a raw wound to be touched and activated and to pour forth these negative emotions. And I could feel during the breath work, because the breath went deep, deep inside of me, like when you start to breathe really deep and consistently in a pattern, it was starting to like stretch open these parts of my body. And it's like it just cracked open this little piece inside of me. That's how I can describe it. I don't know what actually happened, but and that residual sadness inside just came pouring out. And I was left afterwards with this sense of like just calm and deep peace. And it was so, and then I looked at his picture afterwards and I was just like, thanks, Dad, because there was a learning in that. I realized that I had to go through that so I could teach you, you lovely, wonderful woman out there, that this is within you. Any perceived slight or wound or difficulty in your life, if you haven't actually found it within, processed it, and let it out, it's still in there. And Dr. Gabor Mate speaks about the body keeps score. Mm-hmm. It's stored in the tissues, and honestly, if I hadn't gone through this myself, I never. I would have believed that I've read the book and I was like, yeah, of course the body keeps score, it's the tissues. The tissues have chemistry and chemistry of emotions, and the emotions flow into the tissues and they can get stuck.
Yeah, in Ayurveda we have different emotions in different tissues as well. So that's where they get stuck.
Yeah, like the liver, I think, is like bitterness with the bile or
for another day for sure.
For another day. Yeah.
What I wanted to elaborate on though too, because you just touched on it, like this came from a time when you had a larger or longer cave that you were in, right? When your dad had passed. And I just want everyone to know that although you're giving an example of something that happened and you were able to get through the dark cave in a short period of time, there's also very long periods of time that you can be in a cave, and wherever you're at is totally, completely okay. And my story is a bit different, where my cave was months long. From a traumatic event for myself. And so, using the tools of the opposites with the diet and the lifestyle and forcing myself to get outside and go for a walk and get out into nature and do the things that I needed to do to sweat out the depression and to elevate myself. It took time, and I knew that I would get through it. I knew the tools. I knew it was going to take time, and I knew that I had to have compassion with myself that it was going to happen. And so I just wanted to also mention that sometimes it does take a long time, because sometimes it's your big one, right? And then you get through it, and then sometimes those big ones, aren't all the way gone when you get to the light, right? And then they pop up, and there's always more work to do.
Like an abscess that you have to drain.
Yeah. So it's a journey. It's a journey, and these are some of the tools. We'd love to elaborate more. We'd love to know what you think. We'd love to know what you want us to talk about, because we just can't stop talking to each other when it comes to these topics. So let us know what you want us to discuss and what you want us to touch on in the future.
Yes, thank you. And I feel like we, thank you, Natasha. There was so much brought to the table, so much fuel for conversation. And the important thing is to remember, you'll see people on social media, and you'll see people like us doing our thing, and it looks like everything is great, right? And I mean, yes, I do. I love my life, and I have fulfillment pursuing my passion. I'm so grateful doing this. And I have my dark caves of negative emotion that I get into sometimes. And this is the thing, life brings us these things to learn and to teach. And so we learn from experience. We're teaching it to you. You're going to learn. You teach it to your children, right? And we have to start this positive cycle We have to bring humanity out of its dark cave of negative emotions. But it's just like Natasha said, it's not like we're going to, as humanity, we're not going to all jump from one level to the next level of awareness. There's going to be some of us coming out of that spiral, and then some other people will come at their own pace, and other people, and all of a sudden it'll be this beautiful spiral of all of us getting out and into the light. And so it starts with you. It absolutely starts with you. So as soon as you start finding yourself saying, like, I mean, what about this person? I can't do that while this person is doing this in my life. It's nothing to do with external. It's all about the inner world. We're talking about journeying in the inner world. And there is a place in the light. Your inner world is so calm and so peaceful that it does not matter what's happening in the outer world. Like there can be complete chaos. There are people in the Holocaust who found the light within. As people were being tortured and murdered around them, you read these beautiful diaries and beautiful accounts in Cambodia when they were going through those horrors. There were people there who were bringing so much compassion to the world from their internal wellness. We can reach that state. I hope humanity has learned enough that we won't be repeating that ever again. We have our own lessons to learn in this day and age. Nonetheless, they are very hard lessons that we are learning, but I believe that it's less about what's happening in the outer world, although that is important, and more about recognizing the inner world and how we have to heal that in order to become agents of change in our outer world. We cannot make a positive impact from the dark cave of negative emotions. So first you have to work on yourself and take the time, as Natasha said, like I took 5 minutes to be in the room and 20 minutes to go for a walk. You take the time that you need. It might be longer. You may need more time. You may need to hire some help, for a period of time, like these things. But men are much better. Like you, Natasha, you mentioned that your grandpa and your dad did this. Like, what were the moms doing, Women are way worse at setting boundaries and speaking up for themselves. And like those men, I'm pretty sure they didn't say, I'm leaving and I'm going to go for a drive. No, they're just like, okay, I'm just going to go for a drive, see you in a bit, and then they left. And yeah, maybe like the mom got upset because they were gone and not there. But for the family, it was probably better to have a father who was temporarily driving or boating and rowing and came back in a good mood than having them present and angry, right? So you may need to have a discussion with your partner in advance and say, let's have a code word. I'm going to do this with my husband. Oh my God, I just thought of this. Code word. I'll be like, dark cave. I'm in the dark cave, and he'll be like, okay, go, because he appreciated that. In the end, afterwards, he's like, what happened? I was like, I just needed to pull out of it. Did you notice I'm like so much better right now? He's like, yeah, totally, good, thank you.
Yeah, to avoid the stewing, that's where we get the tools, right? That's where we get the movement and the diet and the exercise. Like, let's not put that on a lower shelf, right? Like, in yoga, we're able to actually push through emotions based on the type of asana practices that you're doing, right?
It's just poses, by the way, for those who don't know asana. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. The different poses can open up like your sadness and break it open. And some postures can help like really like cool down all of that frustration, and some of them can ground down that anxious energy just by how you're moving the body. And so there's just so much healing and medicine in our movement. So think about the energetics of how you move your body, and that can help your mind get unstuck. The food can help your mind get unstuck, right? Nature can help your mind get unstuck, right? So there is like the option to sit with it and ask the why and like keep going. And there is the option to be like, okay, body, I'm going to need you as a tool today. And just figure out what you need, and then communicating that. And my goodness, like being able to communicate was my life journey. As I mentioned, the men in my life were good at like, being able to like walk away and tell people what they want, but the women stewed and didn't talk and like, and so kept it in. So it's been my life journey to be able to communicate my feelings and understand my boundaries and communicate them. And it's so hard. It's so hard, but it takes practice, and you'll really see that it's something that people find as a strength, and they appreciate it, and the men in your life are going to appreciate it because they don't know what's going on up here and they want to know. So communicating it is going to help them.
Yeah, and your partner, like if you're a woman-woman relationship, it's still the same idea. You want to communicate, you want to create warm boundaries with each other, and the dynamics will shift. You know, sometimes people have a more masculine energy, some people have a more feminine energy, and that shifts with time. So sometimes it's the partner. And so if your partner comes to you asking for that space, give them the love of allowing them that space. Return that kindness and that love, because one day you're going to need it. So,
Absolutely.
and Natasha, I think I have an idea for our next session. Maybe you can teach us some of the poses, the asanas that go with each specific emotion.
Yeah, I'd love that. And we can also talk about how the different emotions sit in the different parts of the body and like what organs we need to be looking at, right? And so how can we nurture the organs? So, you know, like our fear sits in our kidneys. Like how do we nurture those? Like we can tell by different parts of our face whether or not our kidneys are having a struggle. And you know, so many ways to kind of tap into that knowledge and then know that we need to really nurture that part of the body with our movement, with our breath, with our food, with our like whatever we're doing. So
awesome. Well, I'm super excited for that. And Natasha and I are aiming for one session a month together here. So we'll let you know when that's coming up. Natasha, thank you. And I just wanted to show you the impact. June is saying here, so much truth here. I can relate. Thank you. And that's the same for me. Thank you so much for your time. It's, you know, our most precious commodity these days. Thank you for your wisdom, for your sharing, for your love and your compassion. It really comes through. And thank you, ladies, everyone who's watching out there, live or replay. I hope that this brings you some comfort into your day and moving forward. We love you. Mwah. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.